There we are. Hello, everybody. I am cutting it a little close today, but I will be telling you why that is for today's Wednesday wrap up. Welcome to the channel. My name is Margaret Pennard. I'm historical fiction and fantasy sometimes author and eclectic reader. And why am I cutting it close? Because I just got back from the gym, so I got my exercise in already today, so I'm feeling accomplished. um, I've got 6 books for you today, as you could see from the thumbnail, and they're all pretty good, good enjoyable reads. So if you are here for romance or fantasy or nonfiction or LGBTQ or time travel or what's the last one? Cozy, then you're in the right place because I've got something for you that I can recommend. And if you like wrap-ups of lots of different kinds of books, feel free to subscribe to the channel. So just to let you know, in case you're new here, I have a book coming out in, let's see, it's the 20th today. 10 days. 10 days. You have got 10 days before my 7th book comes out. It's called Orla Rafferty Seeks Her Fortune. And as far as I can tell, I've still got 13 pre-order bundles available. So if you want to pre-order and tell me that you did and give me your mailing address, I can send you that as soon as the book is released. So that is in the chat if you are curious for that historical fiction, 1830s Glasgow up labor type of read. Yeah, I think I discovered that Draft to Digital doesn't actually tell you how many pre-orders you have. So we may run into some interesting issues afterwards. But as long as you tell me you pre-ordered it, then you're set. I won't run out. Okay. So that done. Purpose of today. I've got 6 books for the last couple weeks. I do these Wednesday wrap-ups every other Wednesday. And there's a special order I have to go in because there's some updates and I want to link them to the books that relate to the updates, if that makes sense. So election changes. It's still November. It's still fresh in my memory. And so in case you hadn't visited me since the election, I decided to make a couple changes that will be immediately apparent and, some other changes that will take a longer time. One is I'm actually a pescatarian, so vegetarian who also eats fish. So we'll talk about the book that helped me along in that decision at the end. But so that's a thing that I've never done in my life. I've always admired people who do that. And I just finally said that's worth it to me. And then the other one is joining a gym. So I've been parts of gyms over the years, various chains and whatnot. And I'm not like a loyal gym person. I don't need a gym to exercise. I was doing pretty well for several years just with walks and jogs and dancing in my living room. But this election made me feel like I was weak and powerless. And I feel like exercising and strength training help mitigate that. And so that's why I joined. So we'll see. My dollars will be going to being able to go to somewhere and strength train and use their dance studio, which is what I did this morning. And now I feel great. So I don't know. What do you think, guys? What do you think about those changes? We've got a Ven in the house. Hello, hello. He hears genres that please me. How are you feeling today? I'm feeling pretty good. Feeling pretty good. Jim's books reading and stuff is here. Hello, Jim. And we're going to kick off with the first book, which now here's the thing. I usually tag my books in Storygraph with the source or recommendation, source of the recommendation, let's say. But this one was on hold for about a month at the library and I don't have a tag on it. So I'm like 2 months out now trying to remember. I think it was TikTok. I think I saw this creator on TikTok and I was like, ooh, that sounds good. So it's called Countess. Can't really see there. And it's by an indie author, Susan Palumbo. It's an LGBTQ sci-fi thriller. It's anti-empire. And let's see. Viriko Samaru lives in colonized space under the Aeserbot Empire, much like her ancestors before her in the British West Indies. After years of working hard to rise through the ranks of the Empire's merchant marines, she's finally become first lieutenant on an interstellar cargo vessel. When her captain dies under suspicious circumstances, Virika is arrested for murder and charged with treason despite her lifelong loyalty to the Empire. Her conviction and subsequent imprisonment set her on a path of revenge, determined to take down the evil empire that wronged her, all while the fate of her people hangs in the balance. ECW Press, so that's like a small press in Canada, and it sounded like it had my name on it, right? So I definitely wanted to get this from the library, read it, champion the cause. I'm following her on social media now. She sounds very cool. And there's a lot to love about this. It's a novella, basically, short novel. And I love all the vibes. I love the backstory that is grafted from the colonial experience onto space. Like, I'm not a big sci-fi reader, which people may know by now. But when you're using space, the final frontier, to explore themes of things we've fucked up in our own world and universe, like, I like that. That's just like what I'm doing with historical fiction, which is using the past episodes of power dynamics to work out like how we're going to get out of the present situation we're in. So I loved Susan Palumbo's exploration of that in space. And I will say there's a romantic subplot, and it's not a romance. So be careful if you want a textbook romance. And that's all I will say because I don't want to spoil it. But you guys know what that means, right? So forewarned is fair. Forewarned is fair armed. What's that phrase I'm trying to think of? That one. So yeah, I'm very excited, and she's got more stuff coming out. So Ben says, I keep saying I need to start at the gym, but then cake happens extensively. Cake can also happen. Cake happened after I came back from the gym. I made a banana bread with tahini, and it said rum, but I didn't have rum. So what did I use? Like some nut liqueur, Saint Noir, something or other. Anyway, hey, it's got protein. It's got sesame tahini in there. So win-win. Permission slips, Ben. Come on. Cat Paw says, curious, 3 weeks ago, Em suggested we become pescatarian too. It's not like we eat a lot of meat. Same. More like a couple times a week. Oh, I don't know that I was even at that. I was a vegetarian for 20 plus years, so I'm all for the idea. Yeah, I feel like a lot of people experimented with it, but I never did. But I've gradually gotten to consuming less and less meat. And I mean, I don't like cooking with it. I never buy like chicken or beef or pork anymore. I haven't done that for years. And so it's just like when I go out and what I choose. And so, yeah, I think I could still do fish at home. I could still do fish and chips if I go out, but only from sustainable places. Like, what really set me off is that I've been, and I'll hold that thought, lying to myself. We'll get to that book in a moment. Okay, so Countess is number 1. The second one, I'm gonna have to share my screen because we are on the free version of StreamYard. I do not have the ability to do the fancy overlays anymore. So we will be using this one. The screen share feature instead. So here we go. So I saw this on my Libro list of advanced reader copies, and I thought, oh gosh, yeah, I have to do this. I've heard lots of things about hockey romances. They're all over TikTok. I usually swipe right by. I'm not a hockey person in any way, shape, or form. So sports romance, hockey romance, what's that going to do for me? I have no idea. But this one combined it with Jane Austen and time travel. How can a person say no to that? How can a Janeite say no to that? So this is Puck and Prejudice by Leah Riley. And I listened to it as an audiobook. So, um, yeah, the premise got me. It was a very well-written romance. So, you've got, a woman who is a spinster at 27, of course, in 1812, Jane Austen's England. And you have a guy in the present day who is a professional hockey player and visiting his sister in England. And we have some good character development of his backstory and what drives him and how he interacts. And he's like, I'm not sure of the term. The first word that occurs to me is like princely, right? Like he's like very I don't want to say woke, but like all about the women doing their own thing, asking permission, consent, like all the modern day good things, like green flags, right? So he's that. And then he goes back in time to meet this woman who is, you know, for equal rights in a time where she doesn't have them. And so they get to meet. Her backstory is also well done. We're talking about how her family treats her, how society treats her, what she wants in life. And then they're both trying to figure out what happened with the time travel and how to get things right. And so the build up to that with several tropes that were thrown in, like the single bed and the forced proximity and like all the fun things. And Gretna Green, of course. That was very fun. I will say I was less enamored of the ending. It is a happy ever after, but with all the things that they had to sort of develop and make logical in the fantasy world that we're living in, where there's time travel, it seemed like it was just a bridge too far, the solution, for me to be like, oh, it was less satisfying because it was too easy. And yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I kept thinking, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? And then the solution was like, but so I mean, it's good. It's happy ever after, but like it seemed pretty easy. But good for them. Good for them. They fit together very well. Oh boy. Ven just told me he has Ice Planet Barbarians on audio. So what is his notorious hockey romance on the shelf? And why is he nervous to read it? Huh. Okay. Notorious indeed. So that was a great romance, and not difficult, not like content warnings or anything like that. Just fun character development, love story development, like nice introduction to the subgenre, if you will. So Puck and Prejudice by Leah Riley. The third one I'm going to share with you today, oops, I need to bring this back up because it's another audiobook. It's the last one I finished. Nope, it's not the last one I finished. Here we go. All right, so this one is The Restaurant of Lost Recipes. I was calling it the wrong thing all along, and I had it on the wrong book in Storygraph. So this is part of a series, and the first one, or the series, I guess, is called The Kamigawa Food Detectives by Hisashi Kashiwai. So this is a Japanese man who's written these maybe 8 years ago. I think the first one came out in Oh no, this one says 2014. Okay, so it's taken at least 10 years to be translated. Big hit in Japan, came over here. Super cool. So I love this. I love this book. And now I'm going to have to go back and read the first one. Basically, it's an audiobook. It's got a cat on the cover, but do not be fooled. It's not about the cat. There's no cat POV. What it is a basically diner in Kyoto, and it's a city that is famed for its foodie scene, right? And you have this diner that's like not the upscale scene that you would expect, but you got a dad and a daughter who are running this diner slash detective agency, and it's a detective agency for dishes. So you come and you have a food memory, and they will interview you and track down the dish that you are looking to recreate. And basically, it's just a way to deliver emotional growth, right? So people come in and they're looking for this thing, and basically the detectives pull out of them what they're really looking for with this like food memory, because food, taste, smell are so related to emotions and memory that it's sometimes like all mixed up in there. So I loved the fact that we're drawing attention to that. And we have lots of different characters. There's 6 different chapters, and we hear about who they are. They're different people. So the first one I remember is like a swimmer at a university who's like a big deal. He's going to go to the Olympics, and he has stuff from his family that he's trying to resolve. And the last one is a singer who was a one-hit wonder, and she's older now and hasn't gone back home to see her parents, and feels like a failure, but like she needs to resolve how she sees herself in the world. So it's all these things, and you get the beautiful food descriptions. So I was waiting to see at the end if they had like a list of the foods that they talked about. They don't. That's the only thing I'm like sad about, because obviously I couldn't hope to make them, but it would be neat to take these to a place and like see if I could find any of these dishes at a Japanese restaurant here in Portland. So it was lovely. There was a lot of like delving into emotional grief and regret, and then sort of plumbing the depths of it, and then coming back up and going, oh, I can get on with life now. Like there was some grief, there was some regret, and like the food coming back and talking about it helps them unearth all that sort of toxic stuff buried under the dirt of their souls. And I just loved it. I'm guessing the first one's going to be like this as well, but the Restaurant of Lost Recipes was lovely. It was just a very cozy read, not very taxing, like not like very heavy to read, but just very relatable and connected and grounded and lovely. So I definitely recommend this for anyone. And the diner does have a cat. The cat is not allowed inside because cats should not be in eating establishments. I agree with that. But the cat is called Drowsy, and it's a neighborhood cat that comes around and says hello to all of the customers, which I have found adorable. Oh, okay. The hockey romance is called Icebreaker. Have I heard of that? Maybe on TikTok. The cover art feels YA. It has a warning for mature content in much smaller text near the barcode, and it was in the YA section of the store. Okay, so it might be a trial to read, is what you're saying. That's fine. Cat Paw says, dang, I was getting excited about the cat. Well, there is a cat, and it is a cute, but it's small, very small part of the like plot and everything. Then says, I like the idea of the food detective books. Feels a little bit like When the Coffee Gets Cold in some ways. Yeah, I didn't get along with When the Coffee Gets Cold. I read half of it. So the first the first installment, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, the original, it had 4, and I got through 2, and they were really long, and it just seemed to take forever to get to the point of why we were talking to this person. Whereas in this one, it's about 45 minutes to an hour for each story, which is pretty similar, but with each character, like they come in and you're told like little telling things about them, like how they walk, or if they get lost, or who they expect to see, or how they talk to the dad. And so you get these clues about the people. And I found that in Before the Coffee Gets Cold, it was just like, I don't know why we're going back in time. I don't know why I'm supposed to care about these people. And like we got through the whole thing, and it was finally like, oh, but it wasn't enough of a payoff for me to care about like the very slow buildup. So if that was too slow for you, read the Kamigawa Food Detectives. Yeah, took a while to get going. Each story felt better than the previous one. Well, I ducked out early. I ain't got time for that. Okay, so I read The Restaurant of Lost Recipes. I finished it yesterday. You can actually see here on my story graph. I finished it yesterday, and then I had a round of errands. And one of the errands was going to Kiriko here in Portland, which is Kokoro. Kokoro is part of Kiriko. It's a brand, and they're 2 stores basically, kitty corner to each other. It's a Japanese import and like craft artisan kind of brand. And I went, and of course the pottery and the ceramics were gorgeous. And there's all these like tea implements and sake cups and like beautiful things to look at. And I just got a couple like food items, like snacks, because I didn't want to spend $40. But it's beautiful, and I do want to go back. The Food Detectives book casually drops names of the trays, the bento boxes, the cups, the pitchers, like all the china and ceramics that they use. It's like there was this and there was this and there was this. And I'm like, how many different sets of things do they have? So it was giving me a little like ceramic ware envy. And then I went to the store and I was just got to enjoy it. I didn't see any of the names that I recognized. They had basically like Ichio and some vintage stuff. Yeah, so I didn't like see any that the book referenced, but it definitely made me hungry. And then it also made me like a little, like I needed a little ceramics beauty in my life. So I took care of both of those things, but I don't know. Do you like when a book makes you do things, or do you not like to be influenced that way? I don't know. Tell me in the chat, tell me in the comments. All right, so that is my library book and my 2 audiobooks. So actually, we're in the clear. I just have physical books now. And I could tell you the other place that I went. I went to the Japanese design place and had my eyes filled. But then I went to Powell's and I broke down and I got a couple cookbooks from the cookbook section. So this one won't surprise anybody. It was too cool. That cover, not to pick up 7 Centuries of English Cooking by Maxime de la Falaise. And so it's like from the 14th century, dishes, techniques, resources, regional specialties up to the 19th century. And I was like, I definitely need this for when the internet is down. So that was the cookbook haul. And then the other thing that was influenced by the Kamigawa Food Detectives is Food Artisans of Japan, Recipes and Stories by Nancy Singleton Hachisu. And she's sort of a big deal, right? I've heard her name, which means if I've heard it and I don't know anything about Japanese cuisine, she's a big deal. And what I thought was really cool about this is that it's less a cookbook and more like talking about the things that Japan is known for, food customs wise, and like the artisans that work in those fields, and why it's so special, and like what they had to go through, and the kind of like folklore, but also just like traditions. And like one of the first things when I was looking through it was talking about, let's see, I'm not going to remember it. It's Sashisuseso, the 5 essential elements in Japanese cuisine. So we talk about sweet, salty, bitter, sour, and then umami. And they have Sashisuseso, which is the 5 elements that make up their sort of balanced flavors. And I'm too much of an amateur in the kitchen to be able to do that off the cuff, but I love hearing people talk about, well, if you have something acidic, you need to balance it with something bitter, or if you have this green, you can, ameliorate it with like something sweet and like, texture and all these different things. So I really appreciate when people put in the work for their craft and like know their stuff. So I'm very much looking forward to this. And this is $15. So yeah, I had to get that while it was a deal. So yeah, not only did I have to eat some Japanese food and look at some Japanese ceramics, I ended up buying a Japanese cookbook because obviously this book will make you do things. Cat Paw says, sounds a bit like something I read a while ago, also translated from Japanese, but the Kindle is downstairs, so I can't check. Okay, we'll wait. You can come back. Food Detectives. Have I heard of that before? Maybe. But I mean, maybe it was this one because this is over 10 years old. It just hadn't been translated yet. So yeah. Katya's here. Hi. Katya just had a video about Korean fiction, and I think you had 6 or 7 books on there that you were reviewing, which is fab. Well done. Ben says, I like when food is front and center in a book. It makes the world feel more realized. Oh my God, the descriptions were so mouthwatering. The way they set it up was that everyone who came to the diner for the detective services, they were offered food as like part of hospitality. And it was just like, oh, I'm just making up a few things. I'm just going to whip this up. This is the set menu. And and then he explains like the 18 different things he puts on the tray. like, what? So it's a guy who likes to do a lot of different things instead of specialize. And so he plays it down, but you're just like, oh my gosh, this sounds so good. And then you get the interview, and then you get like the explanation of the dish that they found, which is cool. Wow to the first one. The 7 Centuries. Nice. Yeah. It looked really cool. And I'm on the back of my head going, okay, if I can't access the internet, what's a good food resource for? Yeah. Ben says, I have so many cookbooks. It's the right weather to make a decent lobscouse. What is that? What is that? Is that a typo or is that a thing? Is that a Manchester thing? Let me know. Anya's here. Hello, everyone. Stopping by quickly to say hello. Lovely to see you. I will be ending the stream with a Climathon update. So in case you want to come back for that later when you have time. But yeah, I actually planned out the stream. This is why I was a minute late, because I was trying to figure everything out before this. Katja says, cheers, 5 Korean books and a day before 5 Japanese books. Oh, maybe I missed that one. Okay, but not this book. This one's on my TBR for next week, and you're making me even happier to get to it. Oh, good. Good. It's a fun one. Yes, and Climathon, in case you don't know, is run by Tasman and Anya. So the hosts of the year-long readathon. We only have 1 book left. Okay, I'm going to hold that thought. I'm going to wait till later. Hold on. I don't want to get off track. Okay, so halfway done. We're going back into romance. This is your typical historical romance. It's called Unclaimed by Courtney Milan. The title doesn't really have much relevance to the story as far as I can tell, but Courtney Milan is a master at like the slow burn, the romance, the subtle historical justice moves, which I really appreciate. She's really good. So I enjoyed reading this. This is basically a prostitute who wants to go straight, and she has to do one last seduction to land her big pot of money. And then she uses as a target a guy who is incorruptible, and they sort of like figure out how each other works and get to trust each other, which is the amazing part. So love a historical romance, love a Courtney Milan, and it's a Regency romance, and there's some funny humor in there, which is also always good. Anything else that I would say? Basically, the historical justice angle that she's focused on for this one is the double standard of chastity, where it's a huge thing for women and they're judged for it, and like the men can just keep it all secret. Let's see if I had a quote about it. Oh, I know I got one of these turn down corners. Oh, yeah, the emotional development, the loneliness part is so good. So Mark continued, I will explain this to you since you seem never to have heard the concept. There is no such thing as a dangerous woman. If a woman makes you want to lose your head and forget what is right, it is you who are dangerous to yourself and even more possibly to the woman in question. So there you go. The double standard and the stuff that is still with us today about, what was she wearing? That whole mess of nonsense. So yeah, she takes these things that are still present, follows the thread back, and makes them ridiculous in even 200-year-old eras. So I love Courtney Milan's expertise with that. So that was great. We've got the last book that I finished last night, which is by an author who has my name. This is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. And I believe Margaret Rogerson started her books in the same cohort as Sarah J. Maas, which is interesting because there was like a whole handful of women authors who started their fantasy career at the same time. 2017. Okay, so I think she was a few years later, 3 years later. But yeah, it's just publishing is weird, so I try to keep my antenna up about like what was influencing what took off and what didn't. So I've had this not for too long. I can't remember where I got it. It's YA. You can tell by the price. I don't know that the cover looks YA to me. I mean, it looks fantasy for sure, but like I think the art is beautiful and yeah, I like the fonts and everything. So it's it has to do with the Fae. It's a young woman. She is 17, so it's definitely YA, but she's had to be very leery of Fae culture because she lives in one of these fictional cities that is in a world that is next to the Fae woodlands. And so she's a master painter. She's got this craft talent, and she thinks she's learned how to navigate the worlds and like interacts with the Fae, but not be taken in by them. And then something happens. And on the other side, we've got a Fae prince who is experiencing a little problem, and the whole Fae realm is experiencing a little problem actually. But that isn't the main focus of the book. So basically, it's like how they relate to each other, and it's about agency and choices and trust, and some of the folklore stuff that she changes or tweaks with Fae folklore is pretty cool. I liked it. There is some stuff in here that's like meant to disgust, like the stuff about decay and corruption, and the descriptions are pretty graphic. So if you're really queasy, like you might not like to hear about carrion beetles and wood lice and like explosions of smelly things, but it was fine for me. I don't have problems with that. Some of the horror stuff has more graphic, like disgust reactions. I don't know who it was who was talking about Dead Inside, Bad and Rad, and that book. It was probably Ven, talking about how it was supposed to like make you want to throw up. And I'm like, yeah, it's not the kind of book that I want. So this is a very, very mild, like it's YA, it's romance, and there's like a little bit. So it's trying to be, I think, grounded and physical and give you like a real physical feel for being in nature and that part of the Fae world. And I like that. So I like hearing about all sides of nature's cycle, not just, oh, flowers and moss are springing up, but also like the corruption and the smell and the disguise of that. I just really liked sort of where those symbols took me. So I do have the next one, which is called A Sorcery of Thorns. It was hard to tell which one was first, but I did figure it out eventually, and I'm glad I read the first one. So yeah, a painter and a Fae prince, and lovely. I did really like the resolution on this one. So a fantasy where it felt very clever how it resolved, and I was like, oh, okay, so that was satisfying. So yeah, extra good. Yeah. All right. So that's book 5, and we're up to the last one. Oh, we have the same comment twice. Ben says, it's basically a stew. I have had some great discussions with friends and the differences between a scouse stew or hash. It varies slightly by region. Lobscouse is sometimes referred to as a lobby around here. But isn't scouse the word for someone who is from Liverpool? So is it like a Liverpudlian lobster stew? Like the language evolution is guiding me to this conclusion, but that could be totally wrong. Ravens ring a bell. I have seen it somewhere. Yeah, it was good. It's really well done. Cat Paw says Tales from the Cafe. Same author as Before the Coffee Gets Cold. I think there might be 4 now. It was like Before the Coffee, more stories, and then Tales from the Cafe, and then maybe like another one. Yeah. Some new like my jam. Adds to post buying ban list. Some new like my jam. I think this is supposed to be sounds like my jam. Got it. Okay, that took me a little bit. I don't know if that's a. I bet you're on your phone. Are you on your phone, Ben? Is that a finger typing error? Tales from the Cafe, the same series as Coffee Gets Cold. I know it had sequels, but cannot remember the names. Yeah, that's Scouser. No, I think Scouse. I think that's also an adjective. Um, People from Liverpool call it lobby. It's actually Scandinavian in origin, apparently. Oh, okay, cool. Sounds like can't type on the phone. Ah, I was right. Okay. There are 5. Anya says there are 5 before the Coffee Gets Cold books translated into English now. The last one is only in hardcover. Okay. Cool. Cool. All right, guys, last book. So, this is actually the second one I finished. So I'm out of chronological order here, but oh boy, We Are the Weather. Saving the Planet Begins at Breakfast by Jonathan Safran Foer, author of Eating Animals. So, this is the one I was talking about in the beginning, that like I was on a journey with the not eating meat choice. And this book started out, and I think I said this before on a live, actually annoying, right? So I was like, Jonathan Safran Foer, he's giving the energy that Jonathan Franzen gives. And there's a whole side industry of jokes about Jonathan Franzen not giving a fuck. Like he's one of these people who's in an enviable position of being able to do his art and not have to do the business stuff, right? And like I have a postcard in my collection that says, so Jonathan, we've got the idea to do all these marketing things. You can go to this video and do this interview and then do. And he just says no. Like, he's big enough, or he doesn't care enough, or whatever, that he doesn't have to do these things to make his living, which is enviable, as I said. Anyway, Jonathan Safran Foer was giving the same energy in the first 60 pages of this book, and then things started to change. So I have too many like turn downs to go through, and only a few. I guess the ratio is not too bad with the bottom turn ups. But at about 60 pages is where he says, and what I've been dancing around this whole time is that climate change, which we can't confront because we refuse to do anything about it. Like, there are climate change deniers, but what we really need to be aware of are climate change believers who are in denial. And that's the camp that he puts himself in. And so what that means, for those who don't understand the distinction, which he takes some time to describe, is that we don't like absorb it into our bones. We don't like understand and accept the fact that like the world is going to end, like not the world as we know it. And so that's why we don't act. Like, we know the oceans, the climate, the water cycle, the heat index, the storms, like all these different aspects of the climate catastrophe are going to change. But like, we see them and we go, oh, let's address this disaster one at a time, instead of divesting from oil and gas, investing in renewable energy, changing our food systems, etc. And so that really hit me. He's got a couple sections in here that are more philosophical, which is hard. I am not the audience for that. But the first one is using someone else's work to reflect on his own reaction and denial. And the second one is his own sort of homage to that first work, where he's interrogating himself. Like, he's having a conversation with himself about why he can't get off the pot, sort of thing. And that I found to be very revealing, like stripped down, really hard conversation to have with yourself, to stay focused, to answer the questions rather than letting your mind go off on a side quest or side direction. And that really rang true for me. That really resonated. So in between, he talks about like why his thoughts have come to this point, right? Like how he's thinking about the catastrophe, what he can do, what is most meaningful for him, etc. And I may be mixing some of the conclusions up because I'm reading another climate book called I Want a Better Catastrophe, which is more into like the grief stuff. This is more about the denial and getting past it and community. And that is more about getting past the grief and saving what we can, you know? But anyway, so this one that I was reading before the election, um, I don't think I have to read Eating Animals. I think that might be more about the details of factory farming, which I already believe. But did I absorb it into my bones? That's sort of the new um level of acceptance that Jonathan Safran Foer is challenging us with. And the reason why it made me change my mind is that there are several times, like when I go out to eat, where I can ask the restaurant if it's organic chicken, if it's sustainably farmed fish, if it's XYZ, right? But I don't want to be a problem customer. And I'd rather not ask and lie to myself and think, well, it could be, and then realize in the back of my head, like that dialogue of interrogating myself, it's probably not. There's no way it's this price with a sustainable food chain. But if I don't ask, then I'm not guilty. Of course, that's BS, you know? But I think I am not the only person in that position. And it's time to let go of that, like, oh, I'm innocent. Oh, I'm not guilty. Oh, there's no blood on my hands. Because if I still value the convenience and the flavor and the momentary experience over the fact that the system is perpetuating itself because I'm adding to the demand for things that are not sustainably raised and processed, then I am part of the problem. So change as oh shoot, what's the band that does that song? Change. It's in Shrek. I can't remember it. Anyway, change is a coming, and that is why. That is my why. This is a great book for the food prompt, also for the change and revolution prompt for Climathon. And so now, since I've got my 6 books covered, I can lead us to the Climathon update. Oh, and then the library hall. Yes. Okay. So the Climathon update and the library hall are going to be mixed in. I had like 8 books to pick up, but because it was raining yesterday because of the bomb cyclone, I had a shoe and cookies from the Japanese place, and I could only fit like 3 books plus the Powell's cookbooks. So I had to leave some of my holds there because I didn't want them to get damaged in the rain. I only have 1 waterproof bag, so that was the choice we had to make yesterday. Oh, okay. I missed it a little bit here. Let's see. Oh, Catpaw says Scouser is Liverpudlian. Hi, Leslie. Hola. Catpaw says Townsend's and Max Miller both have videos on Lobscouse. Oh, Townsend's. Have you told me about that before? I definitely just started watching Max Miller. I don't watch everyone, but if it's interesting, I'll watch it when I see it on my subscription page. He's fun. I like him. Ben says, I learned the hard way not to refer to everyone from Liverpool as Scousers, depending on whereabouts in the area they're from. Some see it as an insult. It kind of is an insult. Really? I thought it was just the accent. Be proud of your accent. I like it. Yeah, no big deal. Might be because I'm from Manchester, though. We have a friendly city rivalry. Okay, fair is fair. Yeah. I mean, I've worked with some very proud Scousers over the years, very friendly people until you talk about football. Yeah, well, yeah, that makes sense. Lol, my Manchester friends now living in France said the same thing. Emma Bennett is here. Hello, everyone. We've got waving. Is it David Bowie? I thought it was a different band. Changes, turn around. Anyway, yeah, I know that from Shrek, so that's showing my age right there. Yeah, Anya says, hearing your mindset shift is so interesting and inspiring. Well, that is good. It's one of those things where you're like, okay, I realized like I was totally being a cheater, and that's irresponsible. So someone who believed in climate change, who is like doing all the other things that are small incremental changes, and then there's like one thing that like it's only a little thing, but like I was choosing to keep the door open rather than shutting it, and like why? So joining the crowd. You could use that for the join prompt for Nonfiction November too. Anya and I were talking about Climathon during our buddy read, however, and this is one of my library haul books, which could be used for Ocean, which is the one prompt we both have left. It's called Rising: Dispatches from the New American Shore by Elizabeth Rush. And I think, oh no, it doesn't have a whole bunch of pictures. I think I had something like this, but it was like a picture book. It was like a big photography book. So maybe this is like she wrote it at the same time, or it's a sequel or something. Anyway, I heard about this. It was on my list, and I saw it again recently. This is like years and years ago. Saw it again recently and decided I'd pick it up at the library. Obviously, I think it's going to be more like that Miami book, A Disposable City, talking about like what we're losing with the climate crisis, and the closer we get to irreversible, like we've already checked the box. It says we're losing X, Y, and Z, but like what else is on the menu of losing? Yeah. So, speaking of shore, this is from the New American Shore. One of the things that I have to consider with sustainable fish is shrimp. So people will say shrimp is a good protein source, but like the only places I would get shrimp are Trader Joe's, Fred Meyer, which is Kroger. And both of those places I don't think have a sustainable supply chain. So every time I look at shrimp in the frozen section, I'm like, yeah, decimated Thai mangrove forests. Like that's what I immediately think of. So like, is it worth this, $8 bag of a dozen of shrimp to decimate the mangrove forests, or like cut down another precious resource that guards against erosion and a culture's way of life? And I go, no, it's not. So yeah, not my thing. We'll find something else. But yeah, so I'm excited about this. The other books that I did take home from my library holds, just a quick peek, are The Red Deal. So this is like the Green New Deal, but the indigenous take on the sort of reforms that we need. So this is by the Red Nation, Red Media Common Notions.org. So it's like a small press, and it's smaller than I thought. It's like a little pocket edition. So I'm pretty excited that I might be able to read this in Native American Heritage Month. We'll see. And then a mystery, Hearts of the Missing by Carol Potenza. This is an indigenous mystery that is set in Pueblo territory, so American Southwest. And I'm pretty sure this is going to be like a quick read, like a very exciting plot, but also like learning stuff about Pueblo culture. So cool beans. That's the library haul. The Climathon update is that, where'd it go? Oh, I'm looking at it. This is the same notebook. I'm looking. So Climathon update. Here is my original list of the books that I thought I would read for the different prompts for Climathon. There's a Storygraph readathon in case you are not yet signed up. And I have multiple books for each prompt because I've read books that satisfy the prompts before this year. So they don't work for me, but they were just recommendations for other people if you want to pick them up. So definitely, Anya's not a moderator. I don't know if you have like a quick link to the Storygraph challenge, but I can make you a moderator. So if you do have a quick link, you can post it. Boom. There we go. So yes, Diane is here. Hello, member of the channel. Nice to see you. Made it to my first live in what seems forever. Yeah, I'm just about wrapping up. So we had 6 books that I reviewed today. One made me go out and buy food, cookbook, and And what was the third thing? Oh, look at ceramics. Look at beautiful ceramics. And the other is like my second to last Climathon read. So we're reading The Logo. It's just one of many consumer capitalism books I've read this year. But the ocean one, I think it's going to be my library haul. We'll see. See. I've got 6 weeks left. Anya says, just found Rising on Everand, adding it to my ocean prop too. Excellent. All right, and there is the Storygraph reading challenge link. So if you're curious about books about climate, you can see what we put down for recommendations for those dozen prompts, and that might help you decide if you want to pick one up based on what we say about it, which is fun, which is great. Thank you for popping in the link. So Climathon update, vegetarian changes, gym changes, cookbook haul. I think I got through everything. So all that is left is to tell you about what's going on this week. Today is Wednesday. We do wrap-ups every 2 Wednesdays. And Friday is Good Fight Friday. It's going to be our last Good Fight Friday guest. It's author Alice Henderson, who writes cli-fi thrillers. That is actually one of the prompts on Climathon. So she is basically she's amazing. She does like 6 different things, but she writes cli-fi thrillers and she draws on her experience as, and I never am sure if I'm going to get it right, biologist, field biologist, scientist. She's done so many different things that I don't know what the right term would be. But she's been in the field for a couple of months and she keeps sending to Instagram these beautiful Sierra Nevada, I think it's Sierra Nevada, it might be Sierra Madre pictures of animals and wildlife in the wild, which is amazing. So that's been delightful. She's going to be coming on the show. She just had a book come out last Friday, and it's the 3rd in the series, I believe, which is called A Ghost of Caribou, which I think I have on ebook now. I don't know if I'll be able to read it in 2 days, but I've read Solitude of Wolverines, the first book, and A Blizzard of Polar Bears, the second book. And they were both so good. So there is a lot of stuff about nature and wildlife that is interesting to read. There is a little bit of stuff about the politics of being a person in that field and the Alex Carter, the main character in the series, how she navigates that. And then there's a lot of like action and suspense and that kind of stuff. So excellent, excellent books. I'm excited to have Alice on Wednesday, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. So if you're available, stop on by. And that is it for us today. Yeah, she finds species that don't have an established compound noun and then thinks up one for her title, which I think was so cool. Like, so niche and so cool. Baller. Love it. More for the list. Excellent. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you for stopping in, saying hello, engaging with the chat. And again, the question I came up with in the middle was, do you like when a book makes you do something like make a dish or look at ceramics or go to the bookstore, or is it just annoying, right? Tell me about the last time that a book made you act on an impulse. I think that would be a fun question. So that is me for a Wednesday wrap up. And thanks for listening and reading right along with me, everybody. Take care and happy reading. Ciao.